Alpine Liquid Fertilizers is your full season crop fertility specialist from start to finish. Visit alpinepfl.com for more.
Well, there's been no avoiding the talk of tariffs in the weeks leading up to the inauguration of President Trump and his subsequent pledge to implement those 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico tomorrow, February 1st. Host of Real Ag Radio, Shaun Haney, of course, headquartered there in Canada, joins us now with the very latest. Shaun, good to have you with us. We have a lot to talk about today, my friend. We're just a day out. What are you hearing in Canada about the tariffs?
Well, you watched the news last night, and it's tariffs. There's a lot of concern in Canada about what this could mean for Canadian exports to the United States. And you got to remember here, we're talking about a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico, not other countries. So if you apply a tariff of 25% on one of your largest trading partners like Canada, the U.S. consumers and buyers are going to be searching other places for some of those goods. For example, Canadian potash, 87% of the potash that is used in the U.S. Midwest on the corn acre comes from Saskatchewan, Canada. If there's a 25% tariff on Canadian potash, the only other place in the world to get that is Belarus or Russia. And so that's what importers are going to be forced to do. Seems like kind of a weird situation if you look at that commodity specifically. How Canada responds, we'll have to see. But there's a lot of concern, and I would say a hope right here as of Friday morning that after we see Holman and Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly meet today, that there's an opportunity for a backing down, so to speak, of these tariff threats.
You know, when we talk about Canada, I think one of the number one exports to the U.S., energy. So what could we expect to see in the coming weeks if these tariffs go through? And, because really you are our biggest trading partner in that area.
Yeah, and one thing I learned this morning is in doing some research on some of the energy trade, because, definitely something that we don't focus on all the time and from an agriculture perspective, is that it's the U.S. Midwest that is the most impacted if there was to be a 25% tariff put on Canadian energy coming into the country. That is where the majority of that product is used, which, again, President Trump is probably going to hear from some of the senators and governors across the Midwest in terms of the impact it could have on fuel prices, for example, in that area. It also puts a lot of pressure on refiners in the U.S. as well. Canada's pretty split on how they should use the leverage of Canadian energy and its importance to the U.S. market in this potential trade war or trade response. Some people talking about an export tariff where if the U.S. tries to import Canadian energy, not only would there be a 25% tariff on the import, but there would also be a 25% tariff on the export out of Canada. So we're really increasing the cost. Some people saying we should cut off the export altogether and freeze out the U.S., which would really impact the Midwest and some of those farm states that really support President Trump. Well, some of those are pretty drastic measures. I guess we're going to have to wait and see if Canada goes to that length to respond.
And before I let you go, what do you think we're expecting here? More from the short-term or the long-term impacts? I guess for both countries, but first start with yours.
Yeah, well, the impacts here are Canada is definitely more exposed to a trade war than the U.S. is between the two countries. The U.S. is by far the highest, most important trade partner that Canada has. Canada also, though, imports a significant amount of U.S. goods. There's a lot of concern here that this is going to push the Canadian economy into a bit of a tailspin, so to speak, if the U.S. presses too hard. But we have heard President Trump say that he is trying to economically break the country. That's from a couple weeks ago. So I think we should take that's a pretty significant, serious point that he is making. At the end of the day, for American consumers, we're talking about higher costs. We know who pays tariffs. It's going to be pushed on to the consumer, and that's only going to be tolerated for so long, especially when we see so much concern about some of the costs of goods at the grocery store.
Right. right, something to watch today and tomorrow for sure. That's host of Real Ag Radio, Shaun Haney. Appreciate your time. And you can catch Shaun on his show, Real Ag Radio, which airs at 4:30 p.m. Eastern weekdays on Rural Radio, channel 147 on Sirius XM.